Now, it's emerged that Donald Trump surreptitiously switched planes as he left a NATO summit in Turkey last month in response to a possible threat by Iran. That's according to the Washington Post, who say the US president boarded Air Force One in view of television cameras as part of the elaborate ploy. It came a day after the US renewed military strikes against Iran following a breakdown in communications. Well, here we can see a catering truck with Trump reportedly aboard, pulling away behind Air Force One en route to a military aircraft. The apparatus was elevated to plane level on the opposite side of Air Force One. The president then reportedly took off in the C-32A aircraft, often used by the vice president, unbeknownst to the journalists and some White House staff. Well, Trump is then seen disembarking from Air Force One after secretly reboarding the aircraft amidst the confusion. It's unclear how he moved from the C-32A back to the legacy jet. Well, we're now joined by former US Secret Service agent who worked for three presidents, including Donald Trump, Paul Eckloff. Thank you so much for being with us. It's great to be able to talk to you and unpick some of this. I mean, a catering truck, it's not a red carpet, is it? This sounds like something out of a James Bond film. Is this normal?
This is normal every day for the Secret Service. It is not normal for the public to be aware of these. It's the oldest of protective methodologies. If an adversary thinks you're in one vehicle or aircraft and you're in another, you significantly reduce the threat profile for all of them. While it's not a normal occurrence for travel with the president in a war zone, it would be something that would be a smart and prudent protective measure that the public would not be aware of.
So this is something, well, getting creative is something that the Secret Service would do. Are you surprised we know about this and the details? Because I'm thinking that on one side, it's good for the public to know that there are threats, but on the other side, the enemy will know that if this happens in the future, if a catering truck pulls up alongside a plane that is meant to be carrying the president, hey, it could have the president in, and that could actually thwart future, operations.
That's a brilliant question, and you're the first journalist I've spoken to around the world to ask that, because this specific threat had to have been actionable and exigent for them to do this rather unorthodox move of the president of the United States to an alternate aircraft. However, that threat ended that day when he successfully returned with all of those aircraft to the United Kingdom and then back to the United States. However, whatever threat decided it was prudent to release this to the press and release this particular protective methodology may still be traveling with the president. So while this one point in time security incident is interesting, the bigger question is what insider threat thought it was prudent to share these techniques and tactics with the world. The public should know that these threats exist and they can be mitigated by these professionals. How that's done isn't always for public discourse.
So are you suggesting that this is a leak that shouldn't have been made, or this is the Secret Service putting it out there to say, pat us on the back because we're great and we've done this amazing thing?
The Secret Service would be the last group that would advertise this capability or method.
So how do we know then? Why has this got out then?
That's a great question. Ask yourself among the 50 groups that travel with the president, who is most up in arms right now about this incident occurring. The Secret Service would only endanger themselves and every protectee they're sworn to protect by revealing their methods. Secret is 1/4 of their name in the United States Secret Service. They are not the one that I consider would be a risk right now of this insider threat. Anyone that travels with this retinue of the president or was working in the operations on the ground at the airport, it could be any number of people. But to me, that's where the scrutiny needs to be put. To question the men and women of the Secret Service's integrity to keep secrets is almost laughable, considering this is something they do every day. And it not only keeps the president safe, it keeps them safe.
You're putting yourself in the line of danger to save whoever it is, a president or whoever you're looking out for. How difficult is it to pull off something like this? Because presumably you can't have anyone knowing, really, not staff who work at the airport, but you need to get one of their trucks to use it, their catering trucks, to use it to get the president in, but without telling them that you're taking it. I mean, it would seem incredibly hard for you to be able to do something like this, surely.
This is incredibly difficult, but realize the men and women of the Secret Service work with our intelligence community, and in this case, countries within the Five Eyes Alliance and NATO allies to keep the president safe, the White House military office. But yes, these secrets are very difficult. These operations are need to know within need to know. there are times when the president moves to and from war zones when not everybody on the president's detail knows exactly where he is at any given time, because loose lips sink ships, and loose lips also can down an aircraft. The men and women of the Secret Service accept this risk every day, and the press certainly does by traveling into war zone. They got to ride on ostensibly the safest aircraft in the world to leave Turkey, which is sandwiched rather inconveniently between Syria, Iraq, Iran, and the Black Sea Russian fleet and the Ukrainian war just to the north of it. The fact that this will be done with secrecy and successfully is a tribute to the men and women of the Secret Service, but they've moved on to the next mission.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the journalists there, and I mean, there were many journalists on Air Force One who didn't know that Donald Trump, none of them knew that Donald Trump wasn't on the flight. So that effectively they're being used as a decoy. Does that concern you a little bit? That there are members of the public, well, there are journalists, there are members of the White House, staff of the White House who are on that flight, who could have possibly been in danger?
Well, I don't accept the premise that it was used as a decoy. The president travels with multiple aircraft. And in case in the motorcade, there's two limousines, so you don't know which one he's in. Would the press have been safer with the president also aboard? Would it have the safest security measures from a ground or air-based attack than any aircraft in the world? Ostensibly, without revealing capabilities, the press may have been safer than the president himself aboard that 747. But everyone who travels with the president understands there's an increased risk. By creating the doubt of which aircraft he's on, spreads uncertainty among the adversaries and makes everyone safer. So essentially, the press and the president, everyone traveling with him, was made safer by this wise and rather simple and smart move made at the last minute.
But it's only safer if the people who are thinking of shooting the plane down know that he's not on the plane. If they think he's on the plane, surely there is a risk, and maybe it's not effectively a decoy, but it was enough of a risk to get Donald Trump off that plane.
But I would ask, if I want to follow your logic to the end, would the world or the United States government be made safer or better if they put the president on that plane with them? Would that decrease the threat to any of them? It would not. So the Secret Service has a mandate to keep the president of the United States communicating with the military command structure and alive, the peaceful transfer of power. They did it successfully. Some people don't like how they did it. They felt it was surreptitious or sneaky. But that's the Secret Service's job. The public has a vested interest in knowing that there are these enormous threats. We've known about the Iranian threat to assassinate Trump and his family members since before Butler, and extraordinary security measures have been put in place since then, even in Butler. However, knowing the means and methods and tactics of the Secret Service serves no one and only serves to feed intelligence to our adversaries.
Yeah, Paul Eckloff, former Secret Service agent for George W. Bush, Barack Obama, I hadn't mentioned that, and Donald Trump as well. Thank you very much indeed.